Hey team, it's Matt here from the Cafe Doctor, talking today about leadership. And I've been asked so many questions over the last few weeks about leadership and what we need to be cognitive of and what we need to be really conscious and aware of over this time, because this Corona-19 outbreak has brought out the best and the worst in people, and now is the time for leadership. So going to give you 11 things today that you need to be thinking about when you're assuming the role of leader in your business. When you are the leader of a business, you really need to think about these things, especially now that we're in a crisis. Okay, so basically, there's a whole bunch of research done on leaders, and they looked at the top traits of leaders. And there came a list. There was 3 things they looked at. And the first one was, of all the traits of this, I think there's 70,000 leaders actually surveyed. And the first trait they identified was characteristic of a leader was the ability to set vision and strategy. So the direction for the company. So that's absolutely critical as a leader. You know that already. It's no great surprise. So that was one of the first ones. The second one was it drives growth. That person in that leadership role actually drives the growth of the business. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? The third one was most leaders, well, all leaders that you would want to follow have some level of financial acumen. So they understand the numbers, they understand the drivers of a really successful, productive business. So those were the 3 that came out in all the research. But there was a 4th one that no one actually talked about, which was really interesting, because this is something that I've seen all over the world. Bear in mind, I've dealt with companies all over the world. I've got clients in 8 different countries. I've had clients even more in more countries in the past. And you can see the traits of leaders. And this is not the first crisis that we've actually had. So leaders have actually been faced with these type of crises all the time and all over the world, and just in different contexts. So there's a 4th one that people don't talk about because they don't normally need to. And that's the ability to manage a crisis, right? So great leaders really come into their own during a crisis. And I hope that's where you're sitting today. If you look at these 10 things that you need to be really cognizant of during this time, they all come under 3 themes. There are 3 key themes just to be aware of, and they all fall under these 3 key themes. The first one is clarity. Great leaders provide absolute clarity to people. So if I'm in your team, I'm following you, I know exactly what you have said and what you haven't said. You know that the thing that happens after some meetings where these people and they walk out of the meeting and they have the meeting after the meeting? How many times does that happen? The meeting after the meeting. That can often happen because there's no clarity that the leader gave during that meeting. So don't be afraid to give people clarity and say, this is exactly and precisely what I mean. This is exactly and precisely what I don't mean. What I'm trying to say is this, whatever that actually is. Make sure that people leave whatever communication they're doing with you crystal clear as to what you were saying and what you weren't saying. The second one that people look for as far as themes go is consistency. There is nothing worse than a boss who flies off the handle, is not cool, calm and collected, and says one thing one day and something else the next day. It's really frustrating, and it doesn't provide a lot of surety and confidence in the leadership of the business. So you want to be absolutely consistent in what you do. The third thing, the third theme, if you will, of what we're actually looking for in our leaders is communication. Great leaders communicate and communicate and communicate until they are sick to death of communicating. And this is a common trait with all the people that I've dealt with. And a lot of them really struggle with it at first. But in time, they see the benefits of really communicating consistently and across all forms of media with all their team. So I've got some clients who've got teams all over the world, and they send out newsletters, and they voice phone, and they FaceTime and Skype and Zoom meeting, and they do all kinds of PowerPoint presentations and that sort of thing to make sure that all the businesses and all the people in the businesses are all on the same page. Make sense? So those are the 3 key themes: clarity of message, consistency, and communication. So now, more specifically, we're in the Corona-19, we're in the middle of the lockdown. It's a crazy time. Wherever you are in the world, and I know this is going to go all over the world, you might be in different levels of lockdown. Where I am, we're in a complete lockdown. So I'm currently in my home office. The reason this big Cafe Doctor sign is actually up is because out there is an absolute mess. I have a 3-year-old. You can do the math. So we're in lockdown, and various countries will go in and out of lockdown. But these principles actually remain true inside or outside of a lockdown. So the first thing to be is absolutely action orientated and decisive. So during a crisis, people are looking to you more than they ever have before for clarity and decisions. So they want you to make decisions and be decisive. Ambiguity can kill an organization when times are good. So you can imagine what it means right here and now. The second thing to be aware of is you've got a team. You've got a team which are under a lot of stress. They've got families just like you. They've got bills to pay. They've got all these different things to think about, same as you. You've got a business to run and you've got your own family. So please be empathetic. Understand that the way that you approach problems and the way that you deal with issues that come up in your life will probably not be the same way that they do in their life. So be empathetic. One of the really cool things that I've heard of a team doing is actually a team I work with, and it's an all-female management team. And they came up with a score. So they can, on any given day, give people a score, which happens to be fruit for some reason. And the question is, where are you psychologically today? So are you, under a lot of stress? Are you okay? That sort of thing. And they made up a scale that's based on fruit. Strawberries being at the very top, which just means I'm great, I'm all strawberries. And at the bottom, it's lemons because that's sour. So they did their own thing. But maybe you might want to think about just giving people a scale so they can check in and just, how are you today? Well, I'm a strawberry or a lemon or a banana or avocado or whatever is right for you and your business. So have a think about that way of getting people to check in. The other thing to be thinking about is that people during a time of crisis can shut down. They will just hold back everything they're thinking and they won't communicate. So it's your job as a leader to get communication out of them. So if you've got someone in the corner who's quiet and not saying a great deal, make sure we get their feedback as much as anybody else's. Plans. Plan. When things change, remake the plan, do it again. Set plans, change them if necessary, change them regularly. We're in quite a fluid situation, so plans will need to change and they'll need to change regularly, and that's fine. It's just the situation that we're in. So plans and expectations, set them and change them as you need to. But, and we'll talk about planning a bit more in this whole thing. Planning, it was a quote that said, plans in themselves are useless, but planning is essential. That was, I think, Gerald Ford, the President of the United States. I'm not sure on that, but it was someone who actually knew what they were talking about. Because the process of planning is a critical one to understand the predicament that you're in and how you're going to get out of it. So planning is invaluable, plans are useless. So please spend your time planning, and when you need to, remake the plan. Communicate. Now, I am always harping on to my clients. Every single one of them will tell you, talk to your team. By the time you're blue in the face with talking to your team, they're probably hearing it for the first time. So we talk a lot about having values in your business and that sort of thing. And by the time that you are so sick of talking about your values and what you believe in and the purpose of the company and where we're going, a lot of people will just be taking that on board for the first time. So communicate, over-communicate, do it regularly. Even do communications if there's nothing to communicate. Say, okay, team, we don't have any updates, so we're sticking with the plan that we were currently working on. We haven't made any changes. We're going to keep on with that. That just gives people surety about where we're going and the fact that during a fluid situation like this, we're still heading in the right direction. So communicate. The other thing is, and this comes again down to planning, is play ahead of the game. I hear so many people in hospitality and are saying, what am I going to do with my business now or when I get back? I got a better question for you. Where are you going to be in 6 months? So let's say this lockdown finishes in, let's say, a month or 2 months or whatever. Where are you going to be in 6 months? What is your business going to look like in 6 months? Now, as it turns out, I'm putting together a planning tool, which I'll be happy to give out to everyone who watches this, about planning and planning at least 6 months out. So the real key theme of this is play ahead of the game. A lot of your competitors will only be playing the game that's in front of them, the right here and the right now. You need, as a leader, to be thinking 2 steps ahead of that and go, right, where are we going to be? after 6 months, maybe a year's time as well. I've got clients who are looking 2 years out as a result of this. Hospitality businesses. Beware of bureaucracy. During this time, there's a lot of people who will fall back on their position within businesses. Now, this goes especially for big organizations. So when you've got big hotel chains and that sort of thing, people will fall back and you've got to follow the lines of bureaucracy. But everything has actually changed right now. The whole world has come to a grinding halt and everything has changed. And there is no reason why you can't flatten the layers of bureaucracy and actually talk to every single person who might have something positive to say or something constructive to say about where you should take your business and where we are right now. So beware of bureaucracy. It can get in the way of effective communication. Next thing to think about is checking your style. So a lot of people during this, during the normal everyday life, can deal with an empathetic style or a collaborative sort of style of leadership. During this whole period, you might find it more helpful for you to actually be talking in a more authoritative way. That's because people who tend to be more authoritative tend to have clearer messages. So there's no ambiguity with a person with a high D in the DISC profile thing. With a high D, they're very, very clear in their messaging, and we need to be clear with our team. So don't be afraid for a little bit of time to actually be a little bit more authoritative than what you would otherwise normally be. You can revert back to your natural style a bit later on, but for the purposes of this crisis, it won't hurt to say, right team, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. Don't forget, this is what people need in a time of crisis. Prepare for a changed world. This is what are we up to? Number eight. Prepare for a changed world. As you know, from the time this virus started, for the rest of this year and probably next year, we are living in an entirely different world to what we were last year before this thing actually became a thing. So prepare for a different world. People now have been asked to distance themselves 2 meters. Well, what does it do for social interaction? Are we going to wait in line to get a coffee the same way that we were? Are we going to line up at the cabinet and look at the cabinet and put our fingers on the cabinet like we have in the past? Our world has changed forever. We need to understand what that looks like from a health and safety perspective, from a recruitment perspective, from a product offering perspective. Maybe delivery. I know that the world has changed exponentially as far as delivery goes. You know, Uber Eats has been around for a little while, but man, this has made that company something, hasn't it? So Uber Eats, that type of thing, those companies used to be not even thought of. And now they are the biggest thing in hospitality and food delivery at the minute. They're amazing. And they've come from nowhere. So what does your world look like after this change has actually happened? And what are you doing to prepare for what that actually looks like? Focus on what you can control and not on what you can't. We can't control government policy. We can't control other people and other businesses doing all kinds of crazy things. What we can control, we need to focus on. What we can't control, we need to let somebody else focus on. So when you're doing your planning, only count on the things that you can actually control. Governments can change, policies can change, all kinds of different things can change that are out of our control. Let's park that, be aware of it, but let's park it, and let's focus on the things that we have direct control on. Don't be worrying about things that you can't do anything about. Don't run. It panics the troops. Great army saying. So this is actually an old army phrase, as you can appreciate. And what this is saying is, your team need you to be cool, calm, and collected. One of the traits of great leaders is in crises, this type of situation. You're the cool, calm, and collected ones. If your troops see that you're panicking, believe me, they will be panicking as well. They need you to be cool, calm, collected, and methodical and careful in what you do. So everything you do, you're cool, you're calm, you're collected, you're totally in control, you're methodical, and you're very careful. Make sense? Cool. Finally, and very importantly, leaders need to take care of yourself. You've got a lot more weight on your shoulders than possibly anybody else in the business has got right now. So you need to take time out to look after yourself, your family, your loved ones, and your own self, because you can't lead if you're a wreck. So you need to take some time out to reflect, to recharge, and to actually make sure that you're in the right place to lead. So there you go. That's 11 things with 3 key themes: clarity of message, consistency, and communication. And hopefully these are the tools that will take you from being a good leader to a great leader. Anyway, I'll be putting lots more of these videos up from my very salubrious office. So do tune in. We're at thecafedoctor.com. If you've got any questions, send them to matt@thecafedoctor.com. If we can help out in any way, shape or form, please don't be afraid to connect, and we'll see what will help you out in any way we possibly can. All right, keep your chin up. I'll talk to you soon.